Good morning, friends. This is Reverend Tony Bain, and I am the Unity South Central Ministry Consultant. I'm here today to speak with you about your organizational health, how to create a sustaining, dynamic ministry and a ministry organization that lives in excellence, and that excellence is system-wide. So today we're going to talk about Patrick Lencioni's Five Dysfunctions of Team. And this is a leadership piece that is available to you as part of the ministry consultant work that is done within the region. Today we're going to talk about the five dysfunctions of a team. Now there's five effective functions and five dysfunctions. And so I'm going to dance with them together. So Patrick Lencioni, in his book, The Five Dysfunctions of Team, talks about the idea that a team must have trust, must be able to go into conflict, must have commitment, must have accountability, and it must pay attention to results. So trust, conflict, commitment, accountability, and attention to results. So now we're going to talk about the opposite of those, when there's absence of trust. He says that when there's absence of trust on a team, that there is a fear of being vulnerable among the members, meaning there's a fear of telling the truth, there's a fear of being honest, there's a fear of not being heard, there's a fear of speaking and not being heard. So that trust becomes important. In fact, Patrick Lencioni did a survey of 12,000 teams. Friends, that's a huge survey. And in that survey, that what they found was the number one thing that is alive in teams is a lack of trust. 40% of all teams said there was a lack of trust within their system, meaning the unwillingness to be vulnerable. And remember, vulnerability means the capacity to be courageous regardless of outcome. Are you willing to be that courageous person? Don't let, many ways in ministry, we let that desire, because what we've created around the word love, that conditionality, oh, that's not loving. Sometimes Patrick Lencioni says, the most loving thing you can do, and let me just stop here because he says, this is a word that I don't usually use in organizations. But he says, the most loving thing you can do is invite somebody into a higher level of seeing who they are by inviting them into seeing where their next level of growth is. So the trust. The next one is the conflict. We are afraid of conflict. Now, friends, you know this shows up a lot, especially in ministry. The moment any discomfort, the moment conflict arises, somebody wants to rush to prayer instead of allowing the conflict's an energy. And as long as it doesn't go to dysfunctional conflict, as long as it is conflict that just allows people to give their opinions, to talk about what's important when you're in the process of decision making, conflict is very good. He says, if you don't allow, Patrick says, if you don't allow conflict in your organization, he says you only have pseudo community, and you will never do anything great with pseudo community. So trust and the capacity for conflict at a level that is not destructive or dysfunctional. The next one is commitment. He says that if you don't have trust and you don't have the capacity for conflict, he said you will never have commitment. Not the great commitment. He says that the commitment is a lack of clarity and a lack of buy-in from team members in making decisions. If there isn't commitment, there will be this lack of buy-in, which means that as the board president, as the minister, you have to make sure everybody in the room gets heard. And even if they don't want to speak, you invite them to speak, because one of the greatest pitfalls to team is when somebody doesn't get heard and then they leave, the decision gets made, they didn't agree with it, and they walk out to that parking lot and they tell people, I didn't agree with that. Right there, you already have major dysfunction on your board, and you are destroying the board system and the integrity of team on the board. So he says, when you have the absence of trust and you're afraid of conflict, you will have a lack of commitment. Because when you have trust and when you can engage honestly and openly and authentically with each other, be courageous enough, you will have that commitment that's needed when it's time to make the tough decisions. I want to add something else here. Friends, be very clear what your decision-making point is. I don't care what it is, but be very clear as part of your board agreements that you know that when we take a vote, 51%, 66%, 75%, that vote is made. That vote is made, and we walk out as a unified whole. That becomes very important. The next is avoidance of accountability. He says, when you do not have accountability in your system, and he says that this is that trying to avoid interpersonal discomfort because you don't want to say to somebody, this isn't working. I have seen over and over and over again, and I've worked with over 300 ministries, people in the wrong positions, thus not able to do the job, and nobody wanting to speak to them because they're such a nice person. That does not bring excellence to a system. There may be somewhere else that they could fit in. Might be a non-paying job. But to keep somebody that's not performing because you don't have an evaluation system, you don't have a feedback system, you don't want to face it, because face it, a lot of ministers are people pleasers. That's part of why they go into ministry, because they have this desire to serve people, which is good. But don't let your good become a detriment. So we avoid, the next thing is you avoid accountability by not holding one another accountable for the behaviors and performance. Remember, the job description are the elements of what is expected. Accountability is, did you do it? A simple yes or no. Did you fulfill the elements of the job? And last, and this is huge, inattention to results. Oh, well, they didn't do it. They said they would do it, but they didn't do it. We'll just let that go. Inattention to results. Friends, when you have inattention to results, then people are not meeting their goals. The ministry's not meeting its goals. And things start to erode because the focus is not on collective success. This is where in ministry we move from I to we and the highest good of all, not just an individual. So you must pay attention. You must have trust. You must be able to engage in conflict. You must have a commitment, a full commitment for everybody when you walk out of a meeting and there have been action steps created. You must have accountability for people doing what they said they would do, meaning you must have a buy, win, and who's the champion, and you keep track of that, and then you pay attention to the results. That's the keeping track of it. And now I want to go for just a moment to the role of the leader. Yes, that's you. The minister, the board president, that's you. And the role of the leader is you must go first. You must show them. You must show your team. You must model that you have these things. You have trust. You're able to sit in conflict. You can live in commitment. You're not going around also triangulating. You are accountable to what you said you would do, and you pay attention to results. So you go first. And you must know how to mind for conflicts. One of the things I do in the leadership training is I talk about the power of right questioning and what that means in mining for conflict. We talk about that a lot. You must be able to force clarity and closure. Yes, force, there's a word. Force clarity, meaning asking people who aren't speaking up, excuse me, will you speak into this? And even more than will you, we would like to hear from you. And to have closure. Friends, one of the things that I also hear a lot as I work with ministries is we do a lot of talk and no action because people get afraid to make decisions. There's always more information, more this, more that. There comes a time, if you want to move your ministry forward, that you must be about decision making. So force clarity and closure. You must have the capacity to confront difficult issues. You must have the capacity to confront difficult issues. And I do apologize because I just realized I did not have this up. So here's the picture of the 5 dysfunctions: the absence of trust, the conflict, the commitment, the avoidance of accountability, and attention to results. So you must have the capacity to confront difficult issues. You must then focus on collective outcomes. It can't just be personality-based. Who's the largest, loudest mouth in the room? It's got to be what is the highest and best for the collective. That, my friends, is the role of the leader. So this is the 5 Dysfunctions of Team by Patrick Lencioni. We're going to go through them one more time. He says the 5 functions of an effective team are trust, capacity for conflict, commitment, accountability, and attention to results. The 5 dysfunctions are when there is an absence of trust, a fear of conflict, a lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, and inattention to results. This is Reverend Tony Bain, Unity South Central Ministry Consultant. Friends, it has been my pleasure to bring this to you and to know that we do have a leadership class on accountability and leadership in ministry. And just let us know. My number is 816-304-3044, 816-304-3044. My email is revtbaim, @aol.com. Or you can go to my website, www.tonybaim.com. Anyways, we'd love to hear from you. God bless.